leading or not, is how well are you reproducing others, other leaders, other project managers, and for the sake of this forum, other professionals that are being registered with ECSA. And that's really the question we would need to ask ourselves is, have we reproduced others? If we haven't, then we aren't really leading. We may be leading ourselves well, which is good.
Adrian, you suddenly muted. Ad-
Is that better?
yeah. Suddenly you
I
were
went
muted.
into I went into my own world. But anyway, on the one hand, it's very fulfilling if you've done something. But I've found, and others may have other opinions on this, but I've found it far more rewarding to not only do it myself and to have achieved something, but also to have reproduced others who, in their own strength, have produced and even produced better than what I have done. I find great fulfillment in that. And the overall effect on the company is good, the overall effect on the country is good, and so forth. And you can see all the effects by actually developing others and reproducing. So I've just had four key points that I kind of measure myself and just guidelines how I go about it. And others may have different approaches. But I'm going to use the letter R and just briefly talk on each one, and then I'll be done for today on this topic of reproducing others. And the first one is recognize. Recognize, and I could add the word relationship there too. And the fact is, we need to recognize the people in our teams, in our environment. And of course, it's going to take sacrifice. One has to get to know them, have a look at their work, perhaps, well, very definitely go to site, have a look at what they're doing. And so it's managing a lot closer, not from a distance, actually having a look and recognizing the talents and also the things that can be developed in the individuals that we're working with. And this takes some time, takes sacrifice. It may even require, if there's time, which I do from time to time, I go for a coffee, I talk to the individual, what is their passions or dreams, and where's the gaps, how can we help, or what can we do. So that's quite important. And then over time you actually begin to connect well with people, and even with those that are not similar to you, that are different to you. And that's even better, because you don't want a whole lot of people just like you want that diversity, which makes things a lot more interesting and you more effective anyway. So that was the first one, recognize. Then the second one is raise up. And raise up is a lot what we're doing in this forum, and well done to you guys again. And raising up is equipping people to actually be competent, to get the job done, and to take them step by step, and to take them through the things that they're not even aware of. That's the biggest danger, I think, in any of our lives, the things we don't realize. We have blinkers. And I think Chris alluded to that, where he interviewed guys on ECSA and they thought they were okay. But what came out of that was, no, there are some things they need to work on. And so those are like those blinkers. And this is important in raising up, in helping people understand where their strengths are and on some things where they can work on. So it takes effort, it takes input, it takes time, and it's not only you that should be involved, but others, getting others involved. And yeah, there's a whole lot that can be said on that. So recognize, raise up, then release. Now, release means actually giving opportunities. So if I go to these two steps again, recognize, raise. If we do that and we don't release, then actually we just frustrate people. We don't, in the end, we don't believe in them, and you have to get to a point of giving people a chance and release them, give them the opportunities. And I look back on my own career, and I'm actually amazed at how the managers, they risked with me. They gave me, I mean, when I started my job, they gave me this huge project It was more than a deep end. It was deep, very deep end. But they were helping me. They gave me a go, you know. Yeah, so we have to release at some point for people to develop. And of course, looking at ECSA, we want to get those guys to perform. We want our staff to perform and actually do the work. And so that's all going to help in applying for ECSA. So yeah, the releasing part, and then finally rewarding. And rewarding is acknowledgement, you know, well done, or that was great, or um, even in your meetings to say, yeah, that project was great, that was commissioned. And of course, don't acknowledge if it's not meant to be. I mean, one has to be authentic and real. Don't one mustn't just say it for the sake of saying it, but genuinely, if it was well done, it's good to commend people, and they feel good, and then they go better. So those are four elements that I've kind of looked at in my own journey with others that have inputted with me, and the bit that I've done with those that have been in my responsibility. So that's that one for today. So thank you for the opportunity, and over to you, Jan.
Thanks, Adrian. I just want to share the screen for Chris, and now suddenly uh, I had it all right, and suddenly it doesn't show me the the board that I want to share.
Okay, there's just one thing I want to just talk to Adrian quickly about these three R's. Basically, you find this is it's nice and it's good, but then you get your leaders that are actually very critical towards your people that work under you, or they tend to break the people down, which they should not do. And even if what I do is, if the guys make a mistake, I say, you did well, but you meant well, but you made this mistake. This is how we do it. And that tends to bring them up. They never make that mistake again then. I don't know if you've done that way too, also, Adrian.
Sure, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was actually going to say something about it in a different way, and you brought it out very well there. So, absolutely, you do get those that are very critical, and one has to then say or consider that perhaps they are insecure. Maybe if you're criticizing the whole time, you might be insecure that others are coming through. You could be a bit threatened. It could be one of the aspects why one is critical, or you've been developed in a very critical way, so you are familiar with that kind of style. But I like what you say, where you actually go through it with someone and you do it in a building up way, and then people latch on. They feel, yeah, I can learn from this. But harsh criticism, it just tends to break people down, and I don't think it's very helpful. And especially if you're doing it in public, if you go hard at someone, you just belittle them. I don't think it's the way to go. So it's a great point what you mentioned there, and yeah, there's that is important. I wanted to say that it comes back to the release, because if you tend not to release, then you got to ask yourself, you're actually keeping people back, and why is that? One has to ask that. So, thank you for mentioning that.
Okay, thanks. I see my slide is up, so I can most probably start already, Johan. Is it correct?
Pardon?
I can most probably start now.
Yeah. No, you can everybody see the screen? Can you
I
see the
can see it.
screen, Adrian, Chris?
I see it, thanks.
Okay,
Yes, I can see it. Thanks.
I
cool.
can see your trophy.
Okay, thanks. Okay, afternoon, everybody. Everybody knows me by now. I'm Chris Maynard. I'm a professional technician, technologist. I do assessments, moderations, and interviews for ECSA, and I belong to a few organizations. All right, let's just go back. Today, we're going to do the last session on the alternative route on outcomes 3, 4, and 5. Now, just for the introduction, in the previous discussions, slide, Johan. Next slide. In the previous discussion, we held on alternative route. We discussed the requirements of outcome 1 and 2. In summary, outcome 1 is the understanding and ability to apply fundamentals of engineering with the use of mathematics and natural science. Now, outcome 2 is a display of proficiency in the engineering field chosen by yourself. In today's discussion, we will discuss the last 3 outcomes of a total of 5. Now, just to refresh your memories for the characteristics for a broadly defined engineering problem as stated on form B18/EDRR. A, required coherent and detailed engineering knowledge underpinning the applicable area, and one or more of are ill-posed, under or over-specified, requiring identification and interpretation into the technology area. C, encompass systems within the complex engineering system. D, belong to families of problems which are solved in a well-accepted but innovative ways. E, can be solved by structured analysis techniques. F, may be partially outside standards and codes, must provide justification to operate outside. G, required information from practice area and sources interfacing with practice areas that is complex and incomplete. H, involves a variety of issues which may conflict constraints, technical engineering, and interested or affected parties. Now that's just the basic what is written there on your broadly defined engineering activity, the characteristics. Now we're going to outcome 3. Your exit level of outcome 3, the requirement is that this outcome you must be able to demonstrate your competency in the use of engineering tools and information technologies, IT. Now, this outcome 3 has 2 subdivisions. So subdivision 1.3 is where you discuss your ability to use acceptable methods, skills, or tools, which can include computer programs to solve a broadly defined engineering problem. Subdivision 3.2 is where you indicate how you applied the method, skill, or tool to achieve the required results and how you confirm the results as correct. In summary, you demonstrate your competency for the use of various methods inclusive of your skill with various computer programs and tools that are available to solve broadly defined engineering activity and how you confirm your results as correct for outcome number 3. Now we'll go to exit level outcome number 4. The requirements for this outcome is where you display your design competency in a properly structured approach of your project work for a broadly defined engineering problem. This outcome has 4 subdivisions. Now, subdivision 4.1, you describe how you developed the design problem and what process was followed for the development of the design problem. Now, subdivision 4.2, you must describe what needs for the user, legislation, standards, and the resources were captured and evaluated. Now, subdivision 4.3, here you demonstrate your ability to perform design tasks, selection of a preferred solution from your various alternatives, considering assumptions and limits. Now, subdivision 4.4, here you describe how you evaluated your selected design in relation to impacts and benefits and how this information was communicated in your engineering report. In summary, you must demonstrate your design competency in a broadly defined engineering problem for outcome 4. So you design, you collect your information, and how did you evaluate it? Now, exit level outcome 5, which is the last one on the alternative route, is the requirement for this outcome is where you display your competency in the methodology in experimental or investigative and information handling. This outcome has 4 subdivisions. Subdivision 5.1, you describe how you planned your investigation and what information did you use. Subdivision 5.2, you describe the methodology you used to do the analysis and what equipment or software was selected and used. Now 5.3, subdivision 5.3, here you demonstrate your ability for data available, how you extracted the information, analyzed this information critically, and how the conclusions were reached based on your analyzing of the information. Now subdivision 5.4, it's 5.4, where you describe the purpose, process, and outcomes of the investigations are recorded in your engineering report. In summary, you must display your competency in collecting, analyzing, using this information to form your basis of the conclusions to be recorded in your engineering report for outcome 5. Now, the summary of the alternative route outcomes. Today we have discussed in briefly the exit outcomes 3, 4, and 5 for alternative route for registration as a technology in ECSA. At ECSA, there are 5 outcomes for the alternative route that they are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to be completed on Form B18/ER. The remainder of outcomes 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 are to be completed on R03 ERTPT form. They comply with that. So when you're doing your alternative route, you use that B18EDR for the first 5 outcomes, and then you go to the normal form where you complete from 6 to 11. Okay, the presentation is based, acknowledgement, the presentation is based on Engineering Council of South Africa's documents, R02 SDA PE/PT/PCE/PN, competency standard for registration in professional categories as PE, PT, PCE, PN, revision 1, 20th August, and Form B18EDR for alternative route applications. And this is what we can discuss further if any questions are, and thank you very much.
Anybody who has questions, please unmute yourself and ask your question. You're welcome to ask, because that's the aim of the whole thing, is to discuss now. I see there's some questions in the chat.
Okay.
No, there's no questions.
Yeah. I just want to know of the group that is here. Does anybody want to do the alternative route?
Yes, I have a question, but
Yes,
still, graduate must have BTech or advanced diploma for PR technologist. Their qualification must be advanced diploma or the BTech.
No, the alternative route is a certain, what we do is we recognize the experience they pick up on their work experience. So they can have a national diploma, they can have their N6, they can have an N4. It's there. I discussed it about more than a month ago of what were the requirements. So,
yeah, I remember.
Yeah, because if they haven't got the BTech or they haven't got the advanced diploma, advanced diploma or the higher, then they got a certain period of time where they have to work as a technologist with a certain level of experience on level E, where they're responsible on their own of their designs and that.
It means the graduate who have done BSc in chemistry or physics, but they got experience, they can also apply.
Yes, if they want to, they can do. Also, if they want to, if they don't want to do like to become a professional engineer, they can do a professional technologist that does get recognized and they will have the same as what is the BTEC period of 3 years
Okay.
of experience with 1 year of level E.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. But it doesn't matter. It's still difficult to, not I say it's not difficult, it's the same process. A professional engineer, professional technician, professional technologist has to go through. And I still have to write the engineering reports. I still have to go for the interviews and that. Because nowadays we do have interviews for all.
I see Nigel here says that he would like to do the alternate route. Obviously, he doesn't have the BTEC. Nigel, what kind of qualification do you have? Please unmute yourself.
Afternoon, guys. Well, I have the N6 and I've been qualified for 22 years, basically.
Yeah, then
Okay.
if you have the right experience, then you should be able to register as a PR, professional technologist. Chris, would you like
Yes.
to comment?
Yes, you can. Nigel, you can register. Just look at the document R02 STA PTP, I mean PEPT, PCE, and PN. Just look at that document there at the back at Annex A. There they give you on what you, if you've got an N6, how long you must, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 10 years with 6 years of experience on a high position. I'm not sure. I haven't got the document in front of me. So, but you seeing what you're saying, you've got 22 years of experience, and you could just go through those, then you can apply. We don't block you for that at all. But just remember, you cannot, because you haven't got the BTEC or the advanced diploma, you cannot apply for a candidate technologist at all.
Any other questions, guys? Please feel free. You're welcome.
Yeah, John D. Cougar, I wanted to ask, because our BTEC is a specialized qualification. BTEC in structure, BTEC in water, BTEC in urban engineering, like this. So maybe ECSA can think that PR Tech should be in a specialized qualification, because those who have done PR Tech having water experience or done water module in the BTech, they can't do for the structure. They can't go for geotech. So, but current status is a general, the generic, general one. BTech, professional in technologies is a general. It means you are supposed to do a structure also, water also, urban also, geotech also. It means like this. So why don't EXAC consider to make it a specialized? Thank you.
Well, the new qualification, Prof. Sina, is the Bachelor of Engineering Technology. The new qualification is not a specialized qualification.
That's right. That's right.
So I don't see that EXA will go that way, that you have specialists in a specific field as far as technologists are concerned. The point is that your the code of conduct, it requires you to work within to do work of which your qualification as well as your experience has made you competent to do. So in other words, if you qualified in water engineering and you've been working in water engineering, I would not really go into structural engineering. Personally, I've been working for many years in railways, and I'm a specialist in rails. My master's is in structural engineering. That's what the certificate says, but it was actually on rail joints. So I wouldn't go and design a building and sign for it, because I don't feel myself competent to do that. But as I said, my qualification actually says structural engineering, because I looked at the structural aspects of rail joints when I was doing my master's and when I was doing the research on that. Thanks. Any other questions?
Can I just come in there quickly
Ladies and
on that
gentlemen?
there? Can I just come in there, Johan?
Please, Chris.
Just want to give an example. About a month and a half ago, I had to do an interview of an applicant. He did water engineering, and it's the same as what Johan is. But he got his BTech in water engineering, but he'd been working for 10 years in structural. And he was doing a specialized structural work there. And yet he could explain everything about structural. He couldn't explain, the intricate parts of water. And he said he's structural, and he did become registered because he would not touch water, because he was trained. He went to work for a company and they trained him for structural. So it does happen. You say you're going to specialize in the one field, but when you go and work for a company that you're working for, they actually push you into another direction, which does happen. And they do become registered in that field, but they will not touch water, even if they had the background. Because the code of conduct, and that's what we also asked them, is, they must understand the code of conduct. What you're incompetent, what you're competent in, you will practice in that field.
Ladies and gentlemen, please ask your questions. You're most welcome. Don't be shy. Fanello is asking, what advice can you share if one had a difficult relationship with one of the referrers? That is a very good question.
Okay, I'll answer that quickly. If you got, your referees or your referrals, you don't have to take, if you've got one of your referrals that is a supervisor, the other two you can use as colleagues. So you don't have to make all of them your seniors, your supervisors. If you change the companies and you got one of your supervisors or your mentor is very good with you, you can use them, and you can use two of your other colleagues of different companies or working in your company that know you and know at least about, for instance, 3 years of your achievements, a minimum, but it's not really that. But what I'm saying is, don't choose a referral that is going to give you a negative one where you had an argument with them, although you worked with them for a short while or a long period. You know that. So choose your referrals correctly.
Yeah, you don't want to go and as you said, ask your enemy to be a referee for you. Go and look for someone who are registered, but who would give you a positive referral. Cheryl, you've got your hand up. Please unmute yourself and ask.
Can I just tell about one thing before we go to Cheryl? About the referral, there's what is it? Okay, I'm going to use this example that really did happen. And the person gave the referral, and he gave him, for all the 11 outcomes, said he's not competent, but holistically, he said he's competent. Now, you as the assessor, how you go about that is very difficult, because it's already conflicting. So what I suggest, what I wrote there is, I said to them, rather ask this person to give another extra referral, because this person is negative, and there you can pick it up in your referrals of these people that they're actually very negative. They do not be conducive towards the applicant. And what I also picked up is, what we do is, when we're going through the referrals, we also go through their record of experience, their training. And there you pick up a lot of things too. And you say, but this guy that is a referral is not giving the true picture. He's using his emotions. And that's what you don't want from a referral. It's written there, do not use your emotions, be honest about what the person is. So what I'm just saying is, it doesn't also cause you to be downfall. We look at everything in your document that you submit, your report. Okay, that's fine.
Good afternoon.
I'll come back to Carl's question.
May I go ahead?
Yes.
Yes, you can go ahead, Cheryl.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon. My question is regarding I'll make an example. If you want to go for a secondment, you are lacking in one of the categories, for example, design. What is important when you get your secondment? Is it the competency versus let's say, must it be a year or so? Or what is important is when you go there and then you have a 3 months contract, for example, and then you maximize that 3 months, you do as much as you can and you record that, and then you get back to ECSA. Am I going to be judged based on my competency or based on my duration that I spent at a specific consulting company? Thank you.
Now okay. Can I just ask you one question? Why are you being seconded to another company? That's just the one question. In what position? Are you in a managerial position?
No, I'm in a project manager position. And then the reason I want to go for a secondment is that I lack experience in the design component of the categories. For example, the problem solving, engineering problem solving categories. So basically now what I do is basically project management, but then the design side of it, I have not been exposed to and I have not done it myself. So I'm in the process of going for a secondment, but then now I don't know what matters. I know the competency matters, but I'm thinking, am I going to be judged or evaluated on how long have I been at that consulting company, or
No.
I got out
we
of
look
it?
at what your competency that you picked up there. Now you say you in a project management position, you do look at designs, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. I want to ask you one thing, just going to open up your mind a bit. You're looking at designs and you see there's something wrong in the design. You have to prove it to the person that is there, the client, or even your consultant, because you're in like a managerial position. Then you have to tell them why the design is not right. Am I correct?
Correct.
You're already doing design. You understand what I'm saying is, because you don't just look at it and say, no, but the design is not right. You do your calculations, you check everything, and you go to them and say, but I've looked at this, but here is an alternative. Can you see if you agree or not? Is that how you go about it?
Yes.
Do you go about it? So why do you want to
Yes.
go and work with another company?
Wow.
Because you're already
Okay,
doing
and then
design. You're already doing design because you look at alternatives. You look at 2 or 3 alternatives already, and then you decide on the one alternative. You ask the consultants or people where you were there, can you give me your information? You evaluate it, you go through it, you look at it, you even go and collect your own information. So what I'm saying is, don't think you have to leave your work and go and work with another. If you're a manager, working as a manager, and people give you designs, you just don't go and rubber stamp it. Am I correct?
Correct.
So you're doing design already. Everybody's got this misconception of designing. You have to sit in an office and do a drawing. You use hand calculations. You might use a program. You might design your own spreadsheet to work on that. That you tell us. You will not get penalized from that.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that clarification. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Okay. All right. See, who is it?
Carl has asked Chris.
Yes, I see there.
Okay, can you read it?
Yes, I read it there. It's a BTech and You can only find work in structures.
Yeah, we answered the question, but he wasn't in at the time. So if you could
Okay.
just answer that one again, please.
All right. Basically, Carl, it doesn't matter. You know, you might have a BTEC in, you think you're going to go there, and you, like you said, you only find work as a structural, and you find that, but I like structural work. What you have to do is you must prove to us when we're going through that when you write your report and you fill in your forms and your design, that you show to us that you're on the level of a broadly defined engineering activity. We do look at your theoretical training for your BTEC, but then we also look at your level of experience. And I had a candidate who did water engineering, but he worked 10 years. He never practiced in water engineering, but he worked 10 years in structures, and he was in a specialist field there. And he explained everything that is required under the structure, and yet he got registered. So you learn to work in the field of your competency of what you've been trained in.
Obviously, also, Chris, that a person like Carl would be doing courses in structural engineering, although
That's
he was
correct.
doing his BTEC in urban, but he would be doing courses in structural engineering that would give him the background and the knowledge that he did not get in his BTEC. I think that would add to the.
Yes. You see, what happens too is a lot of people, they might, you do your BTEC in a certain field. Like I do construction management, I did my BTEC, but yet I do a lot of geotechnical. I went for courses, I went for training. I get trained there. I do foundations, I do concrete. I got trained in those fields. Although I didn't do it in construction management there. So you do courses, you update it. That's where the CPD points come in, and that is what counts.
Also, you have to look at the 8 subjects that the person did in BTEC. When I was HOD, the requirement was that you had to do 5 subjects of the 8 in your specialist field, like in structures. But the other 3, well, I made a rule in my department that you had to do one of those 3 had to either be project management or construction management, and the other one had to be concrete technology, because all engineering technologists work with concrete. I was the only guy that ever in my life only worked with rails and steel, which is more in the mechanical and metallurgical field. So that was the rule in my department. So in other words, look at the other 3 subjects, which is not the 3 subjects that are the core subjects in your field, and make sure that you mention to what extent those also added to your extra knowledge.
Yeah. Now, basically, it's a knowledge that you pick up while working, and in the field you might study in the one field, but you might go to another field, but you pick up that engineering experience, and if you can discuss it, and you're on the level of not well-defined, but a broadly defined engineering activity, then there's no problem. We take everything into consideration, your training report, your engineering report, your BTEC, what did you go, your career. So when you do fill in your training report, don't fill in just from your, where you got your BTEC. You do it from the day one where you started working, even with, from your diploma time. Even in your training that you got, your P1 and P2. That helps us to see how you broaden out and how you evolve.
Adrian?
Yeah, Chris, just to say, and Johan and the others that have contributed, it's very helpful, because the alternative route, I think, is very relevant in my environment as well. There's very competent staff who's done many years that are, which is great that they have this opportunity. I just wanted to know, Chris, on your side, if you've come across applications with respect to the alternative route, that you've picked up certain shortcomings, or perhaps in the interviews where where guys haven't made it or got through the process. So any wisdom you could give in preparation, yeah, and for those listening and in my environment, what they must be aware of or careful of. So anything else that you could add that before they go into the process of filling in the forms?
One thing that I can tell you, they must be honest. They must be honest with themselves and do their evaluation. They do like a SWOT analysis, see where they're good, where they're weaknesses, where they're threats, and that's what they do. Their strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. But especially on the strengths and weaknesses, go through it and see. But a lot of people can do it. But also, when you go into the interview, I picked this up with a few of the guys, especially the old guys, and they think, no, they've been doing this type of work for years, and they don't think about the basics that they picked up. They don't read it up, and they tell you that's how it's done, and this is the way. Remember, use your mathematical and natural science principles. The people have got it, but don't be aggressive towards the interviewers at all. Go through your report, make sure it's correct. Even if you're doing the BTech route where you got the qualification, go through your report, make sure it's correct. Don't think it's a rush job. Spend time. It's an advertisement you're putting out with your qualifications, with your experience. It's like a job interview. You prepare. And please do not use the example of your friend or your colleague to fill in the form. It does not work. We pick it up when we do the interview, especially when you start counting on your fingers to explain what you've done.
I see.
Hopefully that answers your answer, Adrian.
Yeah, I think that's great. And in my environment, what we try and add to the whole process is the design, the calculations, the proof of how one gets to the final answer. So that's a lot of what we are doing, but that's good. I think it is important to stay both feet on the ground, and yeah, especially if you've been interviewed. I mean, to take that approach of listening and having the right approach. Yeah, definitely. No, that definitely helps. Yeah. So thanks for that, Chris.
Okay.
I see there's a question about possible routes from technologist to engineer. I would like to comment on that.
You can carry on, Jan.
First of all, I understand that there are now qualifications that you can add to your BTech to be ready. Once you have these qualifications, like a master's or some other new qualifications that would enable you to register as a professional engineer. I would like to see that happen first. But yes, some people do register. There's always been an alternate route for technologists to engineer, but I've always said, when I was still on the registration committee, I used to say that that route is described in the Bible, where it says the road is narrow and the door is small, and there are few that find it. But apart from that, I think the important thing you need to remember is that your qualification is like a toolbox. One guy has a fancy toolbox, and the next guy a less fancy toolbox, and the next guy down maybe a very basic toolbox. But what do you do with those tools? If the guy with the fancy tools don't use them and don't build up his knowledge of how to use them to the best ability, then they're useless. But whereas the guy with a basic toolbox, if he builds on them and he adds tools by courses and things like that, and he uses them to the utmost, then he can surpass the guy in practice who has this fancy toolbox. So make sure that you use your toolbox to the utmost and that you develop your toolbox to the utmost. At the end of the day, in a lot of companies, it's not your qualification, especially after 5 and 10 or 20 years. It is what you can do. It's the man value, not the qualification. I appreciate that in many organizations, like I used to work for Transnet and government organizations and municipalities, your qualification is the upfront thing. But in many private companies, it's not the qualification, but what you can do and how you prove yourself, especially in a lot of construction areas. So yes, you can. And also you can, with a professional technologist qualification and a registration, you can have your own consulting practice, and you can sign off drawings. The identification of engineering work was published recently. Make sure that you go on ECSA website, that you read that document. From IPIT side, we want to actually put it on the website and make it into a CPD thing that you can read and get a 0.1 or a 0.2 CPD points for going through that. We want to register that with ECSA. Since they wrote the qualification, the document, they can't really turn us down. So that's the route we want to go. In any case, I've spoken a lot. Please, more questions. I see some of you came in a bit late. Never mind. The recording will still be made available. I'm going to make all the recordings available and put it on the website. I know that there's a very few of them there at the moment, but we hope to have all of them up there soon. So please, more questions, more comments from the people on the floor. Unmute yourself and ask your question. Don't be shy. And remember, when you do your ECSA application, make sure that you sell yourself properly. Don't be too shy and say that you've been involved in this and you've been involved in that. Say, I've done this, or I've been delegated responsibility to do this or that. The moment you say involved, the guy in the project, this or that project, remember that the sweeper was also involved in the project, and the guy who made the tea was also involved. So you need to define your involvement and say what you've done. Please do. Dr. Sina, you have your hand up.
Yeah, no, I agree with Johan. University of Technology are developing a program, Professional Master, all EOT. And Professional Master qualification will make candidate eligible to apply for PRN. But still this program hasn't started in any University of Technology. Still curriculum development is in the process. It is a practice-based qualification. So it will happen. PR Tech, PRN is very confusing. So it will happen, everything will be same. PR Tech, PRN will be same. Thank you.
That argument's been going on for years already, between PR Tech and PR Eng. It's also in Johan's time it started already. But what I'm saying is there is a possible route from technologist to engineer. And it is being changed now with the new, as Dr. Sina said, there's new courses coming out which would make it easier for the people to become there. Not everybody wants to be a PR Eng. Not everybody wants to be a PR Tech. Not everybody wants to be a professional technician. Some people are happy to be a professional technician. Other people want to be a professional technologist. Others want to become a professional engineer. So there is the routes to be followed now. It's been happening now. in a few years, it will be possible for everybody to choose where they want to go. Johan?
Please. More comments from all the participants. Please unmute yourself and make a comment or ask a question. No question in this area is a bad question. They're all good questions. And your question that you think is a bad question might lead to discussion that is very valuable. So please unmute yourself and participate. Don't be scared. We can't even see you.
Can I just ask Adrian a question there? Adrian? Adrian, you're working in the municipality. I just want to know, do they actually have a training program, or is it left to each head of the departments and that to do their own training program for the young guys that come into the industry?
Sorry, Chris, I couldn't unmute myself. Yeah, we've got a training program. We've got a program that's takes about 4 years to provide experience that will lead to registration, either PRNs or professional technician and so forth. So there is that process, and then each individual is mentored on the program and brought into different sections, so they got an overall experiential opportunity. And it differs from person to person. Some may have a particular interest and they stay longer at certain places. So there is that. And I don't know if I've answered you, Chris, with that regard.
No, that's fine. Yes.
I really like that analogy from Johan on the toolbox. I thought that was really well captured. And I always hope that there would be proper recognition for guys in different aspects in the industry. Like some that have a trade are exceptional in their abilities, like that explanation of a toolbox. And sometimes we can overlook that, but they really do such quality work and are indispensable in the industry. So yeah, I like that a lot. So I think we need to promote that more and more, of adding more tools, etc., and giving everyone a chance to develop. And that's what I like about what we've discussed today, that there are these avenues to give people hope, in that. So anyways, that's just my 5 cents extra.
No, thanks. No, that's not fine. Thanks a lot there. Anybody else got questions?
Sorry, I did not raise my hand. Apologies.
Fine.
I just want us to go over, I might have been late and this might have been covered already. I apologize if it has been. The don'ts. I heard the previous speaker saying, don't say you got involved. So I just want from your side to give us more tools of what not to do. Firstly, in an interview. Secondly, in your file, as you are documenting your experience. If you could share that with us. Thank you.
Okay. Now, one of the main things is when you're going to the interview, I know it's difficult to say don't be nervous, but you're nervous. But also, don't be overconfident on people. And if you're in a managerial position, which I've picked up with a lot of people, they're in a managerial position, they tend to look as the peers, which we are interviewing you, as if we your subordinates. It's not the case. So when you talk to the people, you talk to them as if they're normal. You don't give like an authority and try and force your ideas onto them at all. And then when you're filling in your form, please make sure that your spelling is correct, your punctuation is correct, and don't say like Johan said there, you know, I participated. You can say, I participated in this project, but this was my responsibilities and I did these items there, which is correct. But don't just write there, I participated in no explanation. What was your participation? And take ownership of your report. And don't use your colleague's report to put your report there, because it's not your style of writing. It's not your style of presenting. We do pick it up when you come for the interview. It's not the style of how you talk and how you do your work and what is your ownership there. So that is what I say. And then if you're short on courses, you go and do some CPD courses to catch up on there. There is 3 areas that you have to do, but make sure you understand. And please don't sit there and count your fingers when you're giving an answer. That gives the impression that you actually learned the report and it's somebody else's report. If you don't know something, you say, that is, I do not know that. That is not my field of expertise. I will get an expert or somebody that is in that field to help me to do that design. We do ask you that. Does it help you there?
I want to have a submitter. Now, if you want to submit to get registered,
Beg your pardon?
you're not interested.
I can't hear you cutting out badly.
I was waiting.
Hello?
It's not something.
But I'm covered on my side. Thank you for that. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
hopefully you understand how it works. There, hopefully it answers you.
Chris, do you want to talk about how to answer the questions about the outcomes 11 and 10 about the
I mean outcome 11 on your CPD.
yeah,
Okay.
at 9.
Ooh, those are
We
now you're catching me
about it
on the
yesterday.
spot. Okay, 9 is where you have to give your responsibility there. Basically, 9 and 10 interlink each other. So what you do is you explain how you put out your responsibility, how you went about it. If you have to work with communities and that. Then 10
I think
is basically how you solved it there. If I remember right, under 9 and 10 is your responsibilities, and how 10 is how you solved it. You're giving your responsibilities and what did you want. Now 11 is your CPD. We call it the IPD. Now for your things, it is your courses that you followed. Like Johan said, it's the courses, the tools that you picked up. There's management, there's design, and then computer. Those are the 3 categories, if I remember correctly. But there you do your design, your computer. You might have done a computer course about 5 years ago. Just go and do an update on that course. Like in your management is project management, and then the design, if you're in the structures, what designs you went to do some courses on. It's basically, it's technology that you pick up, and your philosophy. What do you understand under the philosophy is under the CPD. Why do we do CPD? You want to train, you want to be kept up to date with the latest technology. And that's it basically in a nutshell. There.
Things like community involvement and ethical.
Yes, community involvement.
What do you need to explain there?
Okay, see, if you do a project, any project that you do, you might do a structure, a house. You think it's something now you would just build on the house. Basically what you do is you find out by your neighbors. Can you build it? Would they be happy with it? Are you going to cut the sunlight out? If you're on construction in your community, the cultural and the rural areas, basically in the community there, in the structure there, you have your CLO, which is a community liaison officer. You usually have a social facilitator, which is a private consultancy that helps with the social and the community. They explain to them what is the project, how many work it is going to generate, how much money they can expect, and how long is the project. But then you get your PSC, your project steering committee. They are the guys there that they come and look at the progress on site. They liaison with the CLO and the contractor and the community, which is a CLO. He communicates the community. Then you get your ward councillors with the PSC also communicate with them. So it's a big structure that follows there. And that is what happens. If you get a problem with your labor supply that is supplied to you as a contractor, you go to the CLO and you say, I'm looking for 10 laborers. They come, they're not working. You go to the CLO and say, listen here, these guys aren't working properly. They go to the PSC, they take those guys away and they supply you with new labor. They're with the skills that is required. They have also got a skills audit there. Now, the cultural, you have to also look at the cultural issues there. Basically, what it happens, if you explain to the project and you would like to work on a Sunday, but the people say, no, it is our day off due to we going to religious functions and that, you can't change it. Also, when you work near graves, you can't work right next to graves. You can't exhume the graves because it will be also a cultural issue in certain communities. So your social, you take into your community into consideration and you explain that there. And then your, what consideration, environmental. What considerations have you taken into consideration when you're doing your project and your design and while you're implementing it? It's always, everybody talks easily about the EMP, the engineering, environmental management plan. But what did you do before you did that environmental management plan? What did you have to do to implement that? So that you discuss there. And that's basically, that is there, your engineering consideration. If you, okay, we're not there, it's a bit further up, we have to talk about the environmental effect the construction work does take in. The most easiest one when you're doing road building or trench excavation, you've got vehicles riding up and down, you do dust control. But when you're doing structures, you haven't got so much involved with dust control. Where you look at your cement that does not mix up in the proper, into the ground. That's one of the, what do? You put a plastic sheet down, you clear it up, you've got a spill kit where you mess, you take it away. So these are the considerations you have to take into consideration there. For chemical, it's chemicals that get spilled on the ground. How do you contain it? For mechanical, it's also oil and that you get problems with the motors. How do you contain that oil? Where do you do it? How do you do it? What is the preventive measures? That's basically what it boils down to there. Okay, any questions on that? I see you're also quiet, Johan.
Oh, thank you, Chris. I see we have very few people left.
Yeah.
Adrian has also left. He said he left a message saying that he had to attend to something else at 2 o'clock. So
Yeah.
I think maybe we should see if there's no more questions. We should proceed again in 2 weeks' time.
I'll just say, we basically finished with the series on the registration. I think what we must do is maybe in 2 weeks' time, take a project and discuss it. You know, something that's happened on site and how go about it. That as an example, you know, that people can understand how they go about to, you know, start filling in the form and that.
Chris, how about in 2 weeks' time discussing how to approach your interview?
Okay, I'll do that.
I think a lot of people would like to know what to,
Yes,
what, you know,
because usually,
they're very unsure about the interview and how to
yes,
go about it and what is expected and what is not expected and what, as you said earlier, you know, in an interview to have an attitude that you are better than the interviewers obviously is not very conducive to getting registered.
yes. No, but what I'll do is I think the people get, especially when we do the review interview with a request, they get mixed up between the experiential interview and the you know, the professional interview. There's a distinct difference between the two. There's a major difference, and the people get mixed up with that. But
Okay,
I'll explain that. I think I'll discuss the. I'll discuss the, you know, experiential interview, and then the professional interview, and then we'll discuss also the review interview, which the applicant can ask for if they've been deferred. I think I'll discuss those three interviews that the people can understand what's the difference between them.
fine. Thanks. Is there any questions? If there's a question, please ask now or forever after hold your peace.
I see Dr. Sina's got a lot of lights above his head.
You know, Chris, I have a general comment. You know
Yes.
what happened during interview? I am interviewing, and we all three interviewers are in water area, and guy is in a structure. So ECSA registration department, you understand? I know all of them. They don't look this thing. There must be one guy in a specialized area. If guy is in a structure, there must be somebody a structure. But it happened last week. We all three were in water area, and guy was
Wow.
in a structure. So I had to ask generic question. Otherwise, I can postpone the interview. That's the only way, which we didn't wanted. So just I asked general question. What is this? So it's a problem. You know, I don't want to
Yeah.
commit any registration department, but it's happening most of the time.
What I do is actually I get I know I do a field where other guys don't do. Also, I do structures. I do basically all of it. And then sometimes they ask me to do agricultural because I worked with agricultural guys. I worked for quite a long time, 10 years with them. And I had to do a lot of work with them and hydrologists also. So I understand. I had a great experience. But I understand what you're saying is there's some people that, you know, I find basically ECSA doesn't have enough people there sometimes, and they tend to use what they've got there. And if you're not in that field, it gets very hairy sometimes. I know what you're talking about, Dr. Sina.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll call it a day then. And thanks.
Can I just make one comment to Dr. Sina quickly, if you don't mind? Dr. Sina.
Yes.
What I do is, if I get into, you know, sometimes you do get into a field where it's very specialized and you don't know. You let the candidate explain to you exactly. And you listen and you learn from him and you pick up something and you ask him about that. And you know what happens? It tends to work.
Okay.
You know, that's what I've done because I had a candidate and I know about the preset slabs with cables. And he was doing it and he was specializing only in that. And he explained to us everything. And yet, when you get to the other points, I find it in structural guys when it comes to project management and and social and that, they tend to lose on the wayside on that. I don't know if you picked
Okay.
that also up too.
Okay.
But when he was explaining, that was fine. I could understand. I know the basics. We've been trained with part of the basics there. You did a bit of basic structures. You can do a lot of things there too in that. And like water, you can apply your theory on the anchor blocks and that, and where you have to your forces. It's the same with the structure.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, thanks a lot, Dr. Sina.
Okay.
I think we can close up now.
Thanks.
And to everybody, thanks a lot. And then we'll talk in 2 weeks' time about the interview, as I discussed with Jan, and Jan can carry and close the interview. I mean the presentation. Okay, right. I see Nigel has got. Oh, he's just saying thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, and have a nice rest of the day. And yeah, stay well until next time. I'm going to stop the recording and stop the session. Thank you and goodbye. Thanks, Chris.